Hello everyone, today I will be reviewing the Big O anime. I have the first season here, Big O, the second season, as well as the single here, the opening and ending CD single, the soundtrack, which is the original sound score, and then the second soundtrack, which is the original sound score 2 for second season. So the interesting thing about this is an anime that I saw back in the day, back on Cartoon Network or Adult Swim is what it aired on. And back then I really liked it, and it just had like the one season. Okay, it was just like the one season, which is 13 episodes, and then I don't think it was all that popular in Japan, so I don't think that it was going to come back at all. And then I guess it was very popular here, and it returned. Cartoon Network actually participated in the funding of the second season, so that's where we ended up getting the second season. So it's really interesting because I own them both. I do not own the Blu-ray though. There is a Blu-ray that has all of them together, but these are just two separate ones here. And the soundtracks, it's interesting that they have three different soundtracks, because this one right here, this first one, it's literally, you can see the track listing. It basically just has, well, I guess you can't see the track listing because it won't focus. Come on. Darn you, focus. If I zoom in. Yeah, I don't know why it won't focus, but anyway. You want to focus now? Nope, it doesn't want to. It just wants to focus on. There we go. Kinda. But anyway, so it doesn't really have too many tracks on it. It's basically, I guess, Respect is an alternative type of opening that it has, and then it has the Big O openings, the End Forever closings, and various versions of that as well. And it's interesting because the music in this show, I would say, is pretty good. I mean, obviously, I have the soundtracks. It's like a classical style music, and the opening is especially. Well, actually, let me tell you this: the ending theme song. It is like a love song, and it's like. It's a really, really good song. It's like a duet, and it's, a male and a female talking, singing, and that one's really, really good. It's called And Forever. And the opening, it's just, it's so different. It's so weird. Because the opening, it's like it's two different songs in one. Because on TV, when it aired, like you had this song that played, and you would hear like the words. Actually, this one actually has like the lyrics in here, so you can kind of see the lyrics. Let me zoom in again. There you go. Okay, so the part that aired on TV was like this part: Big O, Big O, Big O, and you just keep repeating that, and it would say this, and that was it. That was the part that aired on TV. The part that airs on the DVDs during the opening and the original Japanese opening, is the actual Japanese stuff. Actually, is it? I don't even know. I know it's like a separate part. It's like, it sounds different. It's like big O. It's like completely different song. But when you actually listen to the song, it's like combines them. It's just so bizarre. It really is, because it's you hear the one part of the song and then transitions into the other part of the song. Very, very strange. Very, very strange. So overall, it is, I would say, after rewatching it, I certainly wouldn't put it up there as being, one of my favorite shows. It is, I think it had more charm back in the day when I actually watched it, as opposed to, now. But, I mean, I still enjoyed it, and I guess let's do like a brief summary of kind of what this show is about, or kind of what I took from it. So, here are kind of some of the main characters here. So we have, okay, hang on. Okay, so we have here Roger Smith, the man in the center there with a tomato, which is actually very, very important. Very, very important. So, yeah, Roger Smith. If that name sounds familiar, maybe you're thinking of American Dad, the alien Roger Smith. I mean, come on. Come on. Anyway, so yeah, you have Roger Smith, you have his android, Dorothy, which he kind of rescues after the first 2 episodes. Is mostly what that's focused on her. And then you have his butler, Norman. And then you have the Big O, which is a Megaduce, which is essentially a gigantic robot. And you can kind of see it on the back here as well. The robot. So yeah, here's another good view of it here, and then the other good view, obviously, of the Megaduce. So it's interesting because it's combining that element. It's not like it is like a mech show, but at the same time there's a different and greater lesson as well in the show. But anyway, so yeah, you have Roger Smith, and he is a negotiator. He eventually just negotiates with people to form some sort of deal or to fulfill someone's request and a wish. And it's weird because when you think about it, it's like, okay, how is a negotiator piloting some mech thing? Okay, it just doesn't really make much sense there. But yeah, that is the Megaduce he pilots, which is called Big O. Okay, that's the name of it. And he is in Paradigm City, which is titled the City of Amnesia, because there was some sort of event that happened 40 years ago that wiped everyone's memory, and no one has any memory of what happened 40 years ago. And this is really interesting because there are certain characters that are not 40 years old, and you hear them saying, I don't have any memory of 40 years ago, I don't have any memory of this, or other people are saying you don't have any memory of 40 years ago. It's like you're not even 40 years old. So very, very strange, very interesting. Something happened, in the past. And this Paradigm City, it's kind of dark, it's kind of gloomy, it's kind of, it's not really, it almost resembles like New York City, but kind of like darker, it seems. And the technology doesn't seem to be really modern. It's more like old-fashioned type of technology. Like you have like landline telephones and this sort of stuff. But then you have androids like such as Dorothy there, and then you have these gigantic Megaduces, and it's like, okay, that's kind of odd. Things are not really adding up there. And essentially, they also live under a dome. So that's kind of like that one show, like Under the Dome, where people lived under a dome. They didn't really know what was outside of the dome or something along those lines. I never actually watched the show, but I have heard of that show. So yeah, they essentially live under the dome. They never really actually see the sun. It's just under this dome in this city that everyone lost their memory 40 years ago. However, there is certainly speculation that these memories exist in some sort of way, that there's a lot of memories buried underground. There's this underground train system, subway system that has memories, and when Roger has gone down there, it brings him so much fear. It's just so much anxiety and fear that he just becomes paralyzed. He can't face those memories that are there. So that is mostly Roger. Now for Dorothy here, let me mention Dorothy. So Dorothy is an android, and she's essentially modeled after her father, her father's real daughter, which was also named Dorothy, and his daughter died, so he made a android version of her. So essentially the first episode, well actually first 2 episodes, are mostly about him retrieving this daughter, but it's actually an android. And then past that point, Dorothy is actually staying with Roger. And it's funny because she's an interesting character, and she just has like a monotone type of voice, like an android, like Roger. She doesn't really have too much like emotion or anything. And she plays the piano, and she would play the piano very early, actually not necessarily very early in the morning, just like normal morning time, and wake up Roger on the weekends, who likes to sleep in, past noon, So I always found that to be very, very funny. Now I did mention also about the two different seasons. So season 1, 13 episodes, season 2, 13 episodes, and then there's also like a few years, I think, that it paused in between those as Cartoon Network renewed it. So there is certainly a difference between these two seasons. The first season seems to be more individual episodes, like Roger has like a negotiation with this, a negotiation with this, and there's certain elements that are very much the same. Like a lot of times you will often hear the same lines repeated in the episode, such as Paradigm City, the city of amnesia, and just everyone lost their memories 40 years ago, and I'm a negotiator, and this sort of stuff. And season 2 is much more focused on the overall story of it and leading to a proper conclusion. So it's much more focused on the main story. In season 1, at the very end of it, it basically just ends with like a Big O that Roger pilots. He essentially defends the city from other mega deuces that are trying to destroy it, piloted by other villains and such. And then there are these 3 mega deuces off in the distance that are approaching from the ocean, and that's kind of where season 1 ends. You see them approaching the city, and Roger's getting ready, and that's pretty much it. That's the end of season 1. Although it does say to be continued. It does say to be continued, but that's basically it. Then on season 2, at the very beginning, it begins with an identity crisis that Roger has. Like he kind of starts asking the question, like who am I? Why am I the person piloting this? He's really thinking about his life, and it's like, who am I? What is going on here? So then he kind of loses his memory of what he was actually doing. Him being a negotiator and this sort of stuff, and everything changes for him. Like his home is no longer a home; it is now a bank owned by one of the villains in the show, and then people he knew before were no longer, like he kind of has some memory of these people, but it's like he mentions them, but they have like no memory of him. It's like, who are you? And then eventually he kind of regains that back, and that's kind of where the story kind of goes from there. Now, out of all the episodes, there are probably a handful that probably a lot of people remember, and probably some of my favorites as well. So 2 of them are from season 1, and let's say, so episode 3, Electric City. That's one of my favorite ones. So it's basically just there's this, he's tasked with the it's this other character here, which we will talk about in just a moment. Her, Angel. She basically hires him to activate a power generator in the city that has been out for a very long time, and apparently it was out because this electric serpent was actually the culprit. And I actually see that right here. You see that like electricity serpent thing who's sucking up the energy. So yeah, that is basically that episode. The other one, let's say episode 5, Bring Back My Ghost. So this one involves a woman who hires Roger, who she's blind, and she wants him to bring back her dead son, which of course is technically not possible, but guess what? She agrees to it. She agrees to it and actually goes about it and ends up finding him because he never actually died. It was actually some sort of cover-up with like the police and this sort of stuff, some sort of like conspiracy thing. But again, that's also like a mech episode as well, because he has like this ghost mech that he uses. So again, you're kind of mixing some mech action in there, which usually those are not some of my favorite ones. And then season 2, one of my favorite episodes is episode 18, The Greatest Villain. Okay, this is like comical. This is like a comical episode. So one of the villains in the show, his name is Beck. Okay, he's just comedy relief essentially. He's not some sort of villain. He's just an idiot. He's just funny. But anyway, he ends up he ends up kidnapping Roger, and he created a fake Roger with like just like the torso up, and it starts to mimic his speech and everything. And then he actually manages to have that fake Roger, call Big O so that he could, pilot it or just take it away from him. And then what he ends up doing is he wants to destroy Big O, so he attaches like this fake Roger head to like this mobile cart thing, and is like, it just keeps yelling Big O, and the Big O is following it down the city, and it's going to lead him off the cliff into the water. Big O. It's just so dumb. It's just so stupid. It really is. And then Dorothy comes to save the day, and then at the very end, it's like Beck and his cronies turn into like a transformer, and everything. It's like so weird. It's like so weird that all the different parts of their mechs combine to make a transformer. It's just so stupid. But anyway, so on the overall story of the show. So getting back to when it comes to people's memories, people trying to find their memories that they have lost. Everyone is in search of memories, but for the most part, the vast majority of people just kind of go about their daily life. They may not remember anything from the past 40 years ago, but they just continue on. But there are some key people who are desperately in search of these memories. And one of these people is Alex Rosewater, which is the person who runs the city, essentially. So he's trying to get the memories of the past and trying to even get memories of the future, because he thinks, memories perhaps are something that can be found in some physical location or somewhere. Then you also have, I don't think there's any photos of him. There might be on the CD. Let's see. Any pictures of Alex? It does not look like it. I mean, there could be something in one of these other CDs, but yeah, it's not looking like it. The next character is Angel. This one actually does have a photo of her. There's a picture there. Let me see if I can find some colored photos. Here's like a colored photo here. You can see it's probably very blurry. Here's him, her, and Roger. So, yeah, Angel. She is actually working for Alex Rosewater, but she's also secretly helping Roger. So she's kind of like an insider a little bit. Then another character, Alan Gabriel, which let me show you him as well. He's like this funky striped, zoom in, right here. Here's this like, I don't know why it does not focus. It just does not want to focus at it. Like it's like it's on fixed focus or something. I don't know. Does not want to focus on that. But yeah, that's him right there, the striped man. So he is also working for Alex to try to uncover these memories and everything. But he also, well, actually, hang on. So there's also, he's like an android. And he's like really creepy. He's voiced by Crispin Freeman, I believe is the voice actor, and he does a lot of like crazy voices in animes and games and everything. So I recognize his voice right away. It's like, okay, that is the crazy guy. That is the absolute insane, crazy psycho guy. Okay. So then there's also this other organization called the Union, and they're kind of like an underground agency that wants to uncover these memories. And both Angel and Alan Gabriel are secretly working for this union. So, very interesting, very interesting. Now, there's also another character called Gordon Rosewater, which is essentially Alex Rosewater's father, who, the person who runs Paradigm City. So, Gordon Rosewater is this very, very, very old man who kind of lives out on a farm, and he has memories of prior to 40 years ago, because he's actually someone who would be alive prior to 40 years. He had memories implanted into children, and he called them his tomatoes. And all these people who he had the memories implanted into, once they started to recover the memories of prior to 40 years ago, they were all assassinated. Every single one. So it's like you can't have any memory of what happened prior to 40 years or you're going to be killed. So kind of fast forwarding to I guess towards the end of the show when it kind of comes to a conclusion. So that crazy psycho Gabriel Stripe man, he's trying to pilot another Megaduce called the Big Duo, but it ends up rejecting him because these Megaduces have to choose you. So he's controlling it for a bit, but then it ends up rejecting him, and then he dies. And then Alex Rosewater is also piloting another one called the Big Foul, which initially does reject him. He doesn't die though, but he's trying to figure out some way he can pilot it, kind of like forcing him to actually pilot the machine. And he discovers that Dorothy, she has like this little like headband thing, and it kind of comes out, and it's like almost like a CD tray or something, and that's actually stores her memories and everything, and that can actually help allow him to actually pilot this Megaduce. So he ends up stealing. Well, actually Beck I think ends up stealing it, and then it ends up working. And Roger in his Big O, and then Alex piloting the Big Foul, are up in the city, fighting. And all while this is happening, underground, deep in this underground tunnel, Angel and Gordon are below the city, and well, actually first it's Angel who goes down this long tunnel under the city, and she comes across this door, and she comes out into this door, and she's on a movie set. It's just her on this movie set, but looking at this movie set, she remembers her childhood. She remembers that this is where she was raised, essentially. This is where her mother took care of her, like in this little cabin, but it was all a movie set. And this is actually really, really interesting, because when you think about false memories, and you have mind control, and you have memories being implanted into people, you have to think that your parents, the situations that happen to you in your life, they're implanted memories. People implant traumas into you to cause some sort of, hypnotic state to be able to control you, or to cause some sort of problem to make you dependent on them in some sort of way. So there's a variety of different scenarios that can end up happening when it comes to that. So I just found that really interesting, because it's like, oh, she has memories of something happening here, and it's not actually real. It's a movie set. And the person who was playing her mother was the leader of the Union, which is the organization that's trying to take back the memories and everything. And that is when both Gordon Rosewater and the Union leader comes in to the room while Angel is there. Also, something else really interesting about Angel, she has like these scars on her back, like where angel wings were. And so that's really interesting as well. So the Union leader, which posed as her mother, essentially, said that Gordon is both of their fathers. But then Gordon said that both Roger and Angel are not his tomatoes. So obviously those are not the people who he planted memories into. But the Union leader, that was someone that he did. So all while that is happening, and Roger and Alex are fighting up in the city and everything, Roger ends up losing to Alex, and he ends up sinking to the bottom of the ocean. But of course, Dorothy, which is kind of secretly in love with Roger. Dorothy does not have any memories, okay? She got that thing removed. She actually comes back. She actually manages to go save Roger despite that. It's like she kind of forms a consciousness all on her own, which is really interesting as well. And then she connects to Big O, and they destroy, Alex Rosewater and his big foul Megaduce. But then here is where, and this is like the last 2 minutes of the show, is this crazy thing that ends up happening. So there is they kind of, hang on, let me kind of back up. I kind of misphrased that there. So they kind of destroy the Big Foul, but not quite. Like it's like half destroyed, and Alex Rosewater is still actually piloting it. Then this other Megaduce appears behind them, and he's like inverted, colors. Like he's completely like inverted colors. Like, you know, when you apply like the invert filter, all the colors shift to the opposite. It's a really creepy type of filter. And this Megaduce is called Big Venus. And Big Venus is actually Angel. Or at least she's somehow involved with the activation of Big Venus, because she's kind of watching the whole scene here, you know, back in the movie production area with all these TVs and everything, just kind of watching it, watching all this stuff unfolds. So that actually touches, you know, a big foul piloted by Alex, and that it completely disintegrates. And then you start to see the whole ground, the whole city, it's just kind of gone. It looks like a checkerboard pattern at that point, kind of like a hologram. And Roger steps out of the Big O and is talking to it, saying, you know, essentially, I believe something along the lines of, you know, you have to learn to live in the present moment. You can't keep dwelling on the past and everything. You know, this is a very important life lesson when it comes to letting go of the past, learning to live in the present moment and everything. And Angel's listening, you know, on her TV screen, but behind the scenes. And then at the very end, you know, Big Venus walks into Big O. Everything is kind of wiped. Everyone's memory is then wiped. And the next scene you see is the very first scene you ever saw in the anime, which is Roger driving in the city, you know, running over like a little bump, people looking, and him talking about the city of Amnesia. He's Roger Smith, the negotiator. But the one thing that is different is you see both Dorothy and Angel looking at Roger driving. Pretty sure that was not like that the first time, because it makes you wonder. Then it's like, oh, maybe I need to rewatch the beginning again to see if they're there. I'm pretty sure that they're not. That they're not. So it kind of all resets again, or maybe now there's something a little bit different about them. Hard to say exactly, but yeah, it's just kind of one of those things. It all resets again, but perhaps with some slight variations, slight things that are different. So I think overall, the story is kind of like not dwelling on the past. You cannot change the past. You're just going to keep reliving the same thing over and over again. But also, life is a stage. It's all an illusion. It's all what you make it to be. Just like Roger, when he had that identity crisis and everything, is it because he created this? He created his own reality by being lost and confused? Or did he, you know, create his reality, you know, of him being a negotiator as well? So it's all part of the same thing. It's you create your own reality. You can't dwell on the past. You have to live only in the present moment, taking what you can from the past, learning from that, and just preparing for whatever may happen in the future. But the future is uncertain. But you can change your future by what you're thinking of presently. So I think that's a really good moral of the story, whatever ends up happening with it. And it's interesting because, again, it's mechs. You have mech fighting action, and it's like the episodes are kind of scattered about here and there, and it's interesting. It's certainly an interesting show. It's certainly different from some of the other ones, but yeah, that is my summary of it. Again, it's definitely not one of my top favorites, but it is interesting to say the least. It's definitely one of the more odd ones, I shall say. Odd, weird, strange. So let me know if you ever saw this show, what you thought of it, and yeah, I'll catch you later. So you all take care, have a great one, and bye-bye.